What's going on, everybody? This is Davon Marquise West, aka Mark West from StudyWithMark.com, and today we are going to be going over your Sociology CLEP exam for 2025 and beyond, because this video is probably going to be pretty relevant for quite some time. The way this is going to work, if you've seen any of my other videos for 25, I got my College Board breakdown right here. I'm going to go over the main topics, and then I'm going to tell you about what you need to know um, for the subtopics, right? So everything mirrors the College Board breakdown. This study guide, this super intuitive, very in-depth, very everything you need study guide that I have before me, that if you want, you can have if you stick around, or you can just hit the description and go to studywithmark.com and it's all yours. But yeah, I digress. We're going to start with institutions, and then we are going to go into processes, social stratification, and then we're going to end on the psychological perspective. All right. These are all huge chunks of your exam. Everything that I'm telling you, yes, you need to know. Okay. I'm going to go over it very briefly for sake of time. So here we go. All right, economic institutions. You need to know the function of these economic institutions, and you need to know some examples of them. Okay, so function of economic institution is to manage production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. For example, corporations and businesses, financial institutions, market systems, labor unions. Next, education institutions. Okay, their function is to impart knowledge, teach skills, by the sense of cultural norms and values. So these are schools and universities, vocational and technical schools, libraries, museums, even online education platforms. Next, family institutions. Okay. The function of the family institution is to regulate reproduction, care, and socialization of children. Examples include the nuclear family, extended family, single parent families, adoptive foster families. Next, medical institutions. All right, medical institutions function is to address health needs, prevent and treat illnesses. So you have hospitals, you have clinics, public health organizations, research institutions. You have pharmaceutical companies, political institutions. Sorry, I ran into that. Political institutions. All right, function of political institution is to govern societies, make and enforce laws, manage public affairs. So, for example, governments, political parties, courts and legal systems, international organizations. Then you have religious institutions. So the function of religious institution is to provide moral and spiritual guidance and create a sense of community. Some examples of this include churches, temples, mosques, religious organizations, faith-based charities, and religious festivals. All right, next we're going to talk about social process. Okay, when we talk about social process, first thing that we're talking about is collective behavior and social movement. So you need to know what the definition of collective behavior is. Okay, and you need to know how it refers to the actions taken by a group of people who gather spontaneously, while social movements are organized efforts to promote or resist change. Okay, so you need to know some of the key aspects, for example, types of collective behavior, different types of social movements, and the emergence and dynamics of social movements, right? So a good example of this is the civil rights movement in the United States. All right, then we have culture. So the definition of culture is something that encompasses beliefs, behaviors, objects, and other characteristics common to the members of a particular group or society. All right, and some of the key aspects of culture that you need to know, for example, material culture. You need to know what non-material culture is, and you need to know the difference between cultural norms and values, right? Good example of this is in East Asia, the use of chopsticks is part of culture, and it's an aspect of material culture, right? And it emphasis or places emphasis on individualism, or excuse me, in America, the emphasis is highly on individuals, right? We really the idea of individualism in America, but in Eastern Asian societies, individualism is actually kind of frowned upon, and family and certain ideas of conformity are valued, right? So that's a difference in culture. All right, next we're going to talk about deviance and social control. So deviance refers to behaviors that violate societal norms, right? To deviate away. Some key aspects of this are different types of deviance. All right, you're going to want to know that. You're going to want to know social control mechanisms. You're going to want to know theories of deviance. All right. All right, next we're going to talk about groups in the sense of a group is a collection of individuals who interact with each other, share similar characteristics, and collectively have a sense of unity. All right, so key aspects are primary groups, secondary groups, and in group and out groups. Okay, you're going to want to know what all of these things are. All right, for example, a family is a primary group, provides emotional support, while a company's marketing team or your job or the corporation that you work for would be considered a secondary group, right? These companies, your job works together on very specific projects, whereas your family is, it's your family. All right, organizations in sociology. When we talk organizations, these are large, more complex structure groups designed to achieve specific goals and tasks. They have defined hierarchy and rules. Okay, you need to know the types of organizations. You need to know and understand bureaucracy, the bureaucratic structure of organizations, and you need to understand the organizational culture. All right. An example of this is a multinational corporation like Google. This organization has a defined structure, a defined hierarchical system, has a defined culture, and it has a defined mission statement and goals. All right. Next, we're going to talk about social change. All right. You need to know what social change is. You need to know the various forms of social change. So you have evolutionary change, revolutionary change, you have planned change, and you have unplanned change. You need to know what those things are. All right. You also need to know the causes of social change. So, for example, how do technological innovations invoke social change? Economic factors, political movements, cultural and ideological shifts, environmental factors. You need to know all of these things and how they intersect and how they influence social change. Excuse me. All right. Also, you need to know the consequences of social change. So, the impact of social change on institutions, shifts in social norms and values, economic and environmental impact on social change, also global implications for social change. Then, of course, there's the theories of social change. So, you have functionalism, you have conflict theory, you have symbolic interactionism, and then role of agents of change. So, for example, individuals, key figures or leaders who bring forth new ideas, lead movements. Think Martin Luther King Jr., Mahatma Gandhi, Malcolm X, Nelson Mandela. Sorry, drawing a little bit of a blank there. Agents of social change, social movements and organizations, group organized around a cause that work towards societal change, and then of course governments and policies, laws and policies implemented by governments can also drive or regulate social change. Okay, to close off this section, we're going to talk social interaction and socialization. So, social interaction is the process by which individuals act and react in relation to others. It's fundamental to all societal transactions and relationships. You need to know these key aspects of social interaction. You need to understand the types of interaction. Okay, so we have exchange, we have cooperation, competition, conflict, accommodation. You have verbal and nonverbal communication, context of interaction, and social roles and status. Now, again, all of these things are in the context of sociology. All right. So, some examples would be a job interview involves formal interaction, where both parties exhibit specific roles, i.e., interviewer and interviewee, and a group of friends planning a trip cooperates to decide on destinations and logistics. Okay. Socialization is the process by which individuals internalize the values, beliefs, and norms of a given society and learn to function as members of that society. Some key aspects of socialization that you definitely want to know: agents of socialization, stages of socialization. primary socialization versus secondary socialization, and what is re-socialization. Are a child learning table manners from their parents is an example of primary socialization, whereas an immigrant adapting to the norms and values of a new country undergoes secondary socialization. And then you need to know and understand the interplay between social interaction and socialization. So socialization shapes how we interact with others, the norms, the values, the behaviors we learn through socialization. It guides our interactions. Conversely, social interaction is a medium through which socialization occurs. All right. Through interacting with others, individuals learn and internalize societal norms. All right. Next, we're going to get into social stratification. Both social process, social stratification, and institutions are worth really big chunks of your exam. So, starting out with social stratification, we're going to talk about aging. All right. Aging refers to the physical and psychological and social processes associated with growing older. All right. You need to know these key aspects of aging. You need to know life course perspective. You need to know what social roles of the elderly are. You need to know about ageism. And you need to know about the retirement and economic impact of aging. Also, the healthcare and dependency issues related to healthcare for the elderly. All right. Those are all very important things. Next, we're going to talk about power and social inequality. So, power and social inequality refers to the unequal distributions of resources, opportunities, and privileges among individuals in a society. Power is the ability to influence or control the behavior of others, while social inequality is the result of unequal power and unequal power dynamics, right? So, some of the key aspects that you need to know: sources of inequality, you need to know power dynamics, you need to know structural inequality, and you need to understand what social stratification is, in the sense of it being a hierarchical arrangement of individuals in a society. And then intersectionality, how different categories of uh, inequality, i.e., race, gender, class, how they all intersect with each other. Another thing that you need to understand is the interplay between aging and power in, or excuse me, I'm sorry, the interplay between aging and power and social inequality. So older adults often experience social inequality through ageism, which impacts their employment opportunities in some cases. Aging intersects with forms of social inequality. Example here is an older woman of color may face compounded inequalities. She's an older lady and she's black, or uh, of color. Sorry, not to get too political. All right, next we're going to talk about professions and occupations. This is pretty straightforward. Professions and occupations refer to various forms of work and career paths available in society. You need to understand what professionalization is, occupational prestige, workplace dynamics, career development, and societal impact of these things. For example, doctors, lawyers, and engineers who typically require extensive education and training are often seen as having higher prestige and professional status. And the rise of the gig economy jobs like Uber drivers, freelance workers, which reflect changing workplace dynamics and social trends on employment. You need to know the interplay between power, social inequality, and professional occupations. Power and social inequality can significantly impact access to different professions and occupations. And certain professions may hold more power in society, influencing certain social policies and public opinions. Very important. All right, now we're going to briefly talk about race and ethnic relations. This refers to the dynamics, patterns, and the experiences of different racial and ethnic groups in society. So you need to know these key aspects. You need to understand what racial identity and ethnic identity is. You need to understand the difference between prejudice and discrimination, intergroup relations, assimilation, and multiculturalism. And then you need to understand the concept of institutional racism. All right. All right, next we're going to get into sex and gender roles. Sex refers to the biological differences between males and females, while gender roles are the societal norms dictating what behaviors are considered appropriate based on sex. All right, some of the key aspects here include gender socialization, gender inequality, changing gender roles, and intersectionality again. All right, so you need to understand all of those things and how they intersect with each other. All right, finally, we're going to talk about social class and social mobility. So, social class refers to a division of society based on social economic status. Some key aspects here are components of social class, typically determined by factors like wealth, education, income level, uh, power and occupation and lifestyle overall. Class consciousness, you need to understand what that is. You need to understand its effects on lifestyle and also class conflict, excuse me. All right. And we talk social mobility. All right. We're referring to the ability to move within a social strata of society. It can be upward or it can be downward. And what I mean by that is it can be like you can move upper class or you can go down, or you can, become poor, you can become richer. And the key aspects here are the different types of mobility. All right. The barriers to mobility and meritocracy, this idea of meritocracy and economic and social policies, how these things all intersect and intertwine with each other. Okay. You need to understand that. All right. It's very important, and it all falls under the umbrella of social mobility. All right, guys, we're going to conclude this video with perspective. The social perspective involves looking at social life in a scientific way to understand the patterns of human behavior and the relationship between individual actions and social structures. So, for example, you definitely need to have a decent understanding of the history of sociology. You need to know that sociology emerged in the early 19th century in response to the Industrial Revolution, which brought dramatic social change to the world, the global economies. The founding figures are Emily Durkheim, Karl Marx, and Max Weber. All right, so you need to understand what their contributions were to sociology. Um, and also, you need to understand the development over time, post industrial revolution, how the field of sociology changed to become what it is today. Right, and then the methods for this scientific study of so you need to know what the quantitative methods are, you need to know what the qualitative methods are, you need to know what the mixed methods approach are, and also the comparative and historical methods. And finally, we're going to talk social theory. Okay, so with social theory, you need to understand what functionalism is. You need to understand what conflict theory is. You need to understand symbolic interactionism. You need to understand what the feminist theory is, and you need to understand what postmodernism is. All right. Some examples of these things. A functionalist might study how education contributes to social stability. A conflict theorist might examine the inequalities of wealth distribution. And a symbolic interactionist might analyze how social media influences personal identities. All right, guys, that is going to do it for our video on studying for your sociology CLEP exam. I hope that this video was extremely valuable to you. If you want this study guide, make sure you stop at studywithmark.com. On the homepage, hit the Get Started button, take a quick survey, you get a 20% discount code. Nothing on my site is super expensive. I have something for everybody at every price point. All right, so no excuses there. If you want this study guide, it can be yours. Like I said, just make sure you stop at studywithmark.com. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you need help at all, shoot me an email. All right, all my contact info is in the description. Until next time, take care.